Nothing says welcome back from the weekend break quite like 14 witnesses on a Monday. Lindsay Clancy's trial started back up for week 2 on Monday, and there were 14 witnesses. It's a great day for a great day. My name is Sydney Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. As you can imagine, I'm only going to do the first 8 witnesses in this video, and then there's going to be a part 2 because I learned last week on Thursday, even though it was a half a day, that I took all 10 minutes of the recording time available to record that, and I had to go fast at the very end. So we're going to split it up, okay? Witness number 19. Dr. Michael Snyder was called to the stand. He specifically treated Cora, and he knew that all 3 kids were coming into the hospital in cardiac arrest and that they were doing chest compressions and all those things to try to get a heartbeat back. He said that they had used a defibrillator on Cora to try and get her heart beating. Then described Cora when she came into his care. He said that she had a blue tint to her skin, meaning she had a lack of oxygen. He said there was some bruising around the neck and the eyes, and that she also had a little bit of blood coming out of her nose. He said, unfortunately, they were unable to get her heart to start beating again. The defense had no cross-examinations for this witness, and he was excused. Witness number 20, Dr. Andrew Capraro was called to the stand. He works in the emergency department at the Boston Children's Hospital where Callan was taken to. He said he had learned that Callan was going to be coming via medical helicopter to their hospital and that he had been wrangled and was in cardiac arrest. He was being transferred to Boston because they are a children's hospital and have way more things to be able to care for him. He described him as being cold and limp upon arrival. He said that his pupils were fixed and dilated and that he had the marks on his neck. After he treated him, they transferred Callan to intensive care. He had no cross-examinations from the defense and he was thanked and excused. Witness number 21, Dr. David Cassavant was called to the stand next. He works in the ICU at Boston Children's Hospital and he took over care for Callan when Callan came into the ICU. He said based on testing and his exam of Callan at the time, he thought he had a big neurological issue. He said a CT scan showed that he had enormous swelling on the brain, which was likely due to lack of oxygen. He also said that Callan was not responsive in any way when he was treating him. He said he was unresponsive to both things that would cause discomfort and pain. After they had done a lot of tests on Callan and determined that he had no neurological activity, they decided to take him off life support on January 27th of 2023. At this point, the prosecutors wanted to put the medical documents into evidence and the defense had no objection, so they were admitted. Witness number 22 was Dr. Kelly McDonough. He is an emergency medicine physician at South Shore where Lindsay was taken and she treated her that evening. She said she was expecting a trauma 1 response due to a patient falling out of the window. She said that they knew that she was unresponsive and that she was found down outside of her home. She also clarified that the ER staff knew that Lindsay had a spinal injury. When Lindsay made it into the hospital, she did notice the lacerations on her wrist and her neck, but she didn't think it was apparent that she had like a head injury. During this time, obviously photos were shown to the jury of Lindsay's injuries. When they were talking about treating Lindsay, she said that the most important part or most important thing for all of them was the head and or spinal injury. Obviously the lacerations are an issue, right? But that is like a big, very, very bad injury. On cross-examination, the attorney had her agree that Lindsay was not necessarily conscious when she came into the hospital. She was not verbally responsive, but Dr. McDonough said that she was responsive to pain. The defense attorney also had her agree that even somebody with a brain injury still could respond that way to pain, and Dr. McDonough said, yeah, it's possible. Dr. McDonough also said that Lindsay never regained consciousness while she was treating her. She was then thanked and excused from the stand. Witness number 23 is Sergeant Rose Stoffers from the Massachusetts State Police. She works within the crime services section of the Massachusetts State Police. So basically they go to scenes to take videos, to take pictures, and to collect evidence. And that's what she did on that night. She was called to the hospital to take pictures of Lindsay. She took a picture of Lindsay that had a blanket on her. It was like a blanket to help kind of warm Lindsay up, and that was shown to the jury. She did testify that she was trying to move Lindsay's arm from under the blanket, and Lindsay was like uncooperative and like struggled with her a little bit, like she didn't want to do it, obviously. She described the injuries where she saw some brown splattering, which is dried blood. Also the gauze, she removed the gauze, took pictures of the injuries. She saw those injuries herself. On February 6th, she was also called to the Plymouth District Attorney's Detective Office to take some more pictures of evidence that they had. There was pill bottles and some documents that were inside a bag that they received. After the most brief cross-examination, she was thanked and excused from the stand. The jury then got a much-needed morning recess. Witness number 24, Rochelle Amity, was then called to the stand. She worked at Brigham's and Women's Hospital as a nurse in the trauma surgical ICU. She said her first interaction with her was on January 24th when she was brought from South Shore Hospital to their hospital and she was in the emergency room. She said that she was like the main nurse that was assigned to treating Lindsay that evening. She also said that Lindsay was intubated during this time. She was also there when Lindsay coded. Basically her blood pressure dropped below a certain point, meaning that like, you know, she wasn't going to survive, but then they were able to revive her. She said that Lindsay was not responsive at all during the time that she was treating her, but she also clarified that by saying that she was sedated. She also treated Lindsay on the 26th 6th of January. At that time, she was still intubated, but she said like she could kind of understand what she was saying, like squeezing her hands and following a few little directions like that. She then treated Clancy on the 30th when Clancy was no longer intubated, and she said that she literally was flat. No emotion, like one way or the other, just flat, just there kind of thing. Said that although she was having trouble sleeping, that she was alert and oriented. Then she also treated her on February 2nd, and she said that on February 2nd, Lindsay asked her if she could reach out to her attorney. On cross-examination, Reddington had her confirm that Lindsay basically went into cardiac arrest shortly after arriving. She was then asked about the blood transfusion that Lindsay got during surgery because of acute blood loss. Like she had lost some blood, so she had to get a transfusion. So they were talking about that. They also talked about the clear liquid that came out of Lindsay's nose, which they believe is spinal fluid. Amity said that she was aware that Lindsay Clancy had a history of postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression. And then after that, she was thanked and excused. Witness number 25, Megan Collins, was called to the stand next. She also works at Brigham and Women's Hospital as a nurse in the ICU. She testified that she was the one who relieved Amity, who just testified that morning from her shift, and she took over care. She was advised that Lindsay had coded overnight. She said she was focused on keeping Lindsay sedated, so the interactions and responses were very limited, but she says that that's to be expected when you're sedated. She also talked about ICU delirium, and that when Lindsay Clancy was extubated, they took the tube out, she was trying to pull out all of her arm tubes and IVs and all that, trying to get away with it. And she explained this as like being delirious, not know what's going on, being confused, disoriented. And she said Lindsay did experience that. Talked about how on January 29th and January 30th that the psychiatric unit came in to speak with Lindsay because Lindsay was trying to change her healthcare proxy. And obviously they had to make sure that she had the mental capacity to do that, because as a lawyer, I will tell you, it's very important that that's how you can go against certain proxies, power of attorneys, medical power of attorneys, all that is if the person is not in their right mind. She then said that Lindsay was transferred on February 3rd to another unit, and after that, she had no contact with her. Cross-examination, she testified that Lindsay was trying to change the healthcare proxy from her husband to her parents. And when asked if she knew whether or not Lindsay Clancy wanted to be resuscitated or not, she said that she was not privy to that information. After that, she was thanked and excused. Witness number 26 was Dr. Shaw, and I can tell you right now, she didn't want to be there, but she is part of the psychiatric team that talked to Lindsay. She first spoke with her on January 29th as they were trying to do a safety assessment. She did confirm that Lindsay wanted to change her healthcare proxy that day, but they made her wait till the next day for a variety of reasons. One of them to make sure that that decision stayed the same. They also described this change as being like a very low risk thing. She continued to treat her, and one of the things that they talked about when she was transferring to Spalding was how she was feeling, and she said that Lindsay felt good about it. She described Lindsay's mood as okay and future oriented. Spoke to her a couple days later, and she was feeling down again. Her last visit, she said Lindsay felt good and that she had no ideations of, the bad things. On cross, she confirmed that she feels like she is an honest patient, that she was not trying to exaggerate her conditions for some legal reason. Talked about the medications that Lindsay was taking and the quantities. But on redirect, the prosecution noted that Lindsay wasn't taking a lot of those medications. Thank you for being here, and thank you for following along. And don't forget, come back for part 2 because this was a long one.